Hi everyone. We're just waiting for a few more people to join. We won't be too long, so please get comfortable and we'll be getting started soon. Thanks. Okay, so I think we'll get started now. First of all, I'd just like to say good evening to everyone. Welcome to our Counselling and Psychotherapy webinar. I'd like to thank you all for logging on this evening. My name's Chris and I'm one of the course advisors for Ikon. I'm based on the Sydney campus, so more than likely I have spoken to a few of you on the phone about the course. So thanks for logging on this evening. Tonight, we're going to be sharing some information about our counselling and psychotherapy degrees, both the undergraduate programs and also postgraduate. Joining us tonight, we have our Head of Discipline, Dr. Samantha Edwards-Vandenhoek. She's going to be taking us through a lot of the details about the course and can give us an insight as to what to expect. So Sam, did you just want to introduce
Yeah.
yourself and say
Hi.
hello?
Thanks. Thanks, Chris. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm Sam. I'm the head of discipline. It's lovely to be here with you all tonight. Before we begin, I'd like to pay my respects to the traditional custodians of the lands on which we're all meeting tonight, and pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. And I'd also like to pay my respects to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people in the audience tonight. It's lovely to have you here. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to going on the journey with you tonight. Thanks, Chris.
Okay, thanks, Sam. Also, we have our wonderful course advisor from Sydney campus as well, Tequila. She
Hello.
is, yeah, she's not on camera this evening, but she is very much with us and she'll be covering your online questions this evening. So if you look at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a little Q&A box. So please feel free to type your questions there and Tequila will be able to answer them for you. We'll also have some time for Q&A at the end of the session. If your questions aren't covered this evening, then feel free to reach out to one of the course advisors tomorrow and we would be more than happy to assist you. You'll also be receiving a recording of the webinar tomorrow as well. So I guess we're going to dive right in and get started, Sam. And yeah, I guess it's just starting with letting us know a little bit about what counselling and psychotherapy is and what we do here at Icon.
Sure, very happy to do that. So, I'll be referring both to the Bachelor of Counselling and Psychotherapy and also the Masters of Counselling Psychotherapy, and I might kind of drop in a little bit of information about the nuances, differences, and also related to the different levels and entry points and things like that. So, counseling and psychotherapy at Ikon is a holistic and integrated program that provides our students with a coherent and broad foundational knowledge of counselling theories, practical applications, and diverse modalities and approaches of practice. What I love most about Ikon is this idea of the integrated approach. So we don't just teach techniques or in that way, it's thinking about the client as a whole person. So we approach therapeutic practice work and also in the educational context in that holistic way. So mind, body, spirit, emotion. So our course, both of our courses, the master's is a much more advanced practice level and combines more emphasis on the neuroscience and also somatic approaches to psychotherapy, which build on a lot of the foundational work that, if you come with an undergraduate degree in counselling and psychotherapy, offers you access to more advanced modalities of practice, particularly around somatic and body-based interventions. So somatic, we do a lot of somatic work in the undergraduate degree. So yeah, so there's so much I can say, Chris. I can go on and on and on.
That's okay. I
Yeah,
think, I mean, I guess, one of the things that people want to understand is, you can have like just a counselling course, but I guess
yeah,
with
that's
ICON,
right.
we combine both the counselling and the psychotherapy. So I guess it's maybe if you could share a little bit on how
Sure,
those two work together and
sure.
why it's just such a much deeper experience for the students who are
Mm,
doing both.
yeah, and it is a deeper experience. So as Chris has said, the degree is taught to cover both psychotherapy and counselling in a way that these are not divided into separate subjects or different practices, but acknowledge that there are differences in terms of depth and complexity. So in both degrees, you'll learn or you'll advance your practice skills in both kind of ways of um, practicing therapeutically. So often counselling is more about the short-term problem focused works. Often at work, you'll often find counselling as a practice is more commonly used in AOD recovery contexts, in rehabs, where people are in for a short stay and looking for really focused therapeutic intervention to support a recovery process, for example. It might be focused around a specific issue, whether it might be to do with grief and loss. But what I love here is that they're woven in to provide you with a diverse and eclectic and rich kind of base from which to work in a nuanced way with clients from all different cultural backgrounds and walks of life and therapeutic needs that privileges the therapeutic relationship, regardless if it is a shorter term intervention. But the psychotherapy is something that does require more time, longer engagement to often deal with deeper recurrent patterns, trauma. So yeah, we enable you to build your capacity in those areas responsively in different ways across both degrees at different practice levels.
Mm. And
Yeah,
the way we do that, I guess, is a lot through experiential learning.
yeah, that's right.
So I guess,
Yeah.
I'm sure people want to hear about how, we deliver these courses because it's not
Mhm.
just about sitting in front of a computer and just listening to a lecturer talk at the screen for, say, 3 hours in class. It's very
No.
much, more like a workshop style, would you say, with
Yeah, I
classes?
would say that. So
Yeah.
all of our classes, we'll talk a little bit about modes of delivery in a
Yeah.
minute, but they're fundamentally a 3 hour session, whether it
Mm.
be online or face to face. And within the context of that learning environment, the idea is to mirror and kind of model different aspects of therapeutic practice in an educational environment. So we combine experiential work, so students have the opportunity to work in breakout groups, say if they're online, in dyads or in triads, in pairs, or with someone witnessing the work. So it's we don't deliver our the learning didactically, which means just a whole series of slides and a lecturer just talking to you through the slides. I mean, the slides are there as resources, as supporting aids, and students have the access to all of the information within them, and obviously within the learning management, within the Canvas learning management system. But the course and the delivery and also the assessments are kind of like there's a three-pronged approach. So the experiential practical work, so the theoretical knowledge or the philosophical work, the underpinning that you need to be able to deeply engage with the modalities that you'll be practicing in the future. So theoretical philosophical foundations, and also thirdly, and potentially the most essentially, is the reflective work. So we're constantly engaging in reflection or reflection in action with our clients. So the reflective work is really essential, and we offer space to explore that within the context of the classroom or the learning space, but also through our assessments. And that is about encouraging the development of really important counselling skills. So the development of present moment awareness, empathy, warm, positive regard, being able to attune into, what might be happening for your client in the moment, noticing bodily cues and also listening to your own inner dialogue in the context of that work. So it's wonderful because there's opportunity to discuss all of these things. Mm-hmm. And the classes are structured in such a way to enable different modes of engagement with the material or the content or the subject.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that's important for students because obviously, with some courses, they are walking away with all this theoretical knowledge, but no idea of how to actually execute what they've learned. So I think that's one of the positive things about the course and how the classes are run. Just going back, I know we often get the question about, well, what is the difference between psychotherapy and psychology? Because they can get mixed up sometimes. However, there is a distinct difference. I'm hoping you could expand on that.
Yeah, so there is a very distinct difference. I mean, both psychologists and psychotherapists and counsellors are mental health practitioners just as much as arts therapists are. So I'm an arts-based psychotherapist. So there are some fundamental differences. So psychology is the study of mind and behaviour. It's predominantly cognitive focused, and also involves a different area of study that involves often diagnosis. Mm-hmm. So counsellors and psychotherapists do not pathologize. We do not diagnose. We work with our clients therapeutically. Our focus is generally around a recovery and a healing-based model. So when I talked before a little bit about working with the whole person, so a client may come to us with a diagnosis, whether it is potentially ADHD, for example, just for an example. Mm-hmm. Or it could be anything really. It's not, counsellors and psychotherapists aren't trained in that, but also don't focus on that aspect. So it's focused on what may be around that diagnosis or what's underlying that, whether it's related to trauma or some aspect of the living experience of that client that they're hoping to explore. So it's a very different form of practice with quite often different modalities. So you'd be very familiar with things like CBT, and that's a psychological intervention. We do cover some of these aspects in our course because they relate particularly often to working in recovery contexts and addiction contexts in particular with counselling, and there'll be some overlap, but it's a very different orientation and different focus.
Sure. Well, thank you. That's very thorough. And I know a lot of students that come on, or apply for the course come from doing psychology in their courses.
Yeah, that's right.
So, they're, obviously we can talk about credit and things later on, but I guess we just want to get back to what sort of career opportunities can students be, expecting after completing one of our courses?
So at the end of the bachelor degree, which is the foundational kind of your generalist degree, it's kind of your entry level into practice. So some of our students go straight into private practice. They may have obtained some employment through their placement, for example, which might be working in a practice context with other practitioners. So they may be other psychotherapists, there may be a psychologist there, for example. There may be a social worker or someone working in youth work, for example. So they might be working in an interdisciplinary kind of team-based environment. Or they might want to they might have more entrepreneurial skills and want to go out on their own straight away. And sometimes that happens. Often when we have students that have come in with prior learning, maybe a psychology background, for example, and feel ready to go out on their own to set up their own business. So that's very common. But predominantly, most of our students will find initial employment within an organisational context. It may be within a mental health organisation or a rehab hospital, or it may be working with young people in a youth centre, for example, and also in palliative care, in working, in hospitals. So it's really rich and varied, and all of our lecturers, all of our sessional and our permanent lecturers are practicing psychotherapists. So, which is wonderful actually, because we have such a rich mix of academic expertise, but also deep practice expertise. And they teach the modalities and areas of the discipline that they are passionate about and obviously have expertise in. So, and what is also beautiful about that is that the lecturers will share their experiences of their career pathways, and whether they're working in grief and loss in a private practice setup, or we have lecturing staff that working in hospitals. And they can provide you with that clinical insight as well to what it's like to work in a more clinical way as opposed to working in, say, private practice with clients in a one-on-one session.
Well, absolutely. And I also think that even just business skills, setting up your own practice, all those type of things are important for people who are wanting to go into private practice. I think self-care is another big thing. So, I think having experienced lecturers, that actually in practice makes a huge difference with all that knowledge that they can share. And if you are doing online, you've got a variety of different lecturers from, different states as well, and different campuses. Luke, I think we might move to the next slide, please. Okay, so we might just go into the courses now, and basically I'll just cover the basics and you can chat a little bit more about each one.
Sure.
But we have our Diploma of Counselling and Psychotherapy, which is 1 year, which is nested in the first year of our Bachelor of Counselling and Psychotherapy, which is 3 years. I guess we can talk about that first before we move on to the postgraduate courses. Are you happy to share just maybe like study load and delivery, etc.?
Yeah, sure, no problem. So a full-time study load in undergraduate degrees, 3 subjects. For the first 2 trimesters, we have a 3-trimester system. So that's right, isn't it? 3, and then 2. Yes.
2.
So and that can be very depending, but that's the full-time study load. We have a lot of students studying part-time because work and family. So the degree is structured in a way that the learning is scaffolded throughout. So the first year is the foundational year, kind of bedding down your core counselling theories, the micro skills, the skills over tuning, listening, mirroring and paraphrasing, all of those skills that are really important to help you access that capacity to be present and to listen actively and deeply. That foundational year gives you also exposure to all of the kind of the core modalities of practice, from existential to psychodynamic to cognitive, and also more kind of focused or finely tuned area of practice, such as emotion focused therapy. So you get this lovely overview, and what you might find towards the end of the degree that you start kind of resonating towards a particular approach or a combination of approaches. But as I said before, the way we approach it is in an integrative way. So it gives you this kind of rich and broad, coherent body of knowledge. You'll be looking at what it looks like to work in a mental health context, or in a clinical setting, and working in crisis situations, and working with people and clients that are at risk, at a suicide risk. So working in really complex environments, and how to navigate that in a team way, in a team context. We'll also explore ethics. Sorry.
Oh no, continue. Sorry.
That's all right.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
what were you going to say, Chris?
Oh, I was just going to
You're
say in that
okay.
first year, I know you're touching on the foundational subjects, but the students
Yeah.
also have the 120-hour placement in the
Yeah.
first year. Yeah.
I was almost there. Almost there.
Sorry.
You're all good.
I'm too excited. See,
No, no, it's
it's all
all
good.
good. And I'm trying to slow down because I normally speed up. So, yeah, it's so funny. Anyway, so yes, so in that first year, it's like I said, it's foundational. And you have your first placement experience. So, which is wonderful if you're wanting to exit with a diploma because you'll have some practice skills under your belt working with real clients. It's 15 hours of direct client contact. So, and in a supervised placement. So, everything here is focused on safe, ethical, and culturally responsive, trauma informed therapeutic practice. And I say that seriously because it's the underpinning foundation of all of the work that we do, to ensure that, yeah, yourself, as Chris pointed out, self care, you're supported, but also your clients are supported to, through their therapeutic journey in a way that is comfortable, safe, and collaborative. So not directed by you in that way. So that placement is a wonderful opportunity in that first year to really find out, to get real world experience. So yes, and it's an essential hurdle in terms of there's some subjects that go with that are really important for you to demonstrate your capacity to, to model those skills before you're out on placement and you're ready to do that. And we have a program called RAISE, which is within school program. So a lot of our first year students will go into school counselling context. And particularly in Victoria, there's a significant increase in the demand for counsellors within schools and arts therapists due to the Victorian mental health strategy, which is wonderful for our discipline. So the efficacy of what we do and how we work is being recognised much more widely and obviously in the government level, which is really important for any change. So, and then moving into the second year, it's more integrative learning. So we explore lifespan development. We get into trauma-informed practice, what that looks like, what that feels like, how trauma shows up in the body, and looking at the autonomic nervous system, so the neuroscience of trauma. And then looking at some of those models that you explored in the first year, but in a more integrative way, deeper engagement. Also, group work is introduced in the second year, and group work is a large part of professional practice, particularly within, like I was saying, in a rehab context or a hospital context, or working with young people, and also in schools. Grief and loss is covered there, and that's the area that I work in as an arts psychotherapist. My placement was in palliative care, so that's my area of interest and focus of my work, change, grief and loss. So you'll hope, my thinking is that, well, that's how it worked for me when I was studying. You start to kind of resonate with things. Things will click and connect and feel good in that way that align with potentially your lived experience. And we really value lived experience throughout both of the degrees and the way in which we deliver and you engage experientially, because you'll be often drawing on personal content safely and, with your own, you have choice and agency around that to kind of model counselling sessions, role plays, and things like that. So, and particularly in that subject, the grief and loss subject, you might be drawing on your own experience of loss, because understanding self is essential in terms of the development of your professional identity as a psychotherapist and as a counsellor. And this learning journey is very transformative because, as you are learning about the work of healing and with others relationally, it can only have a transformative impact on your own understanding of yourself and your relationship to others in the world and your own patterns and things like that. So it is a beautiful gift, and it can be challenging at times and, and difficult and complex because it is, often it's very deep work, and it's an honor to be able to, and a privilege to be able to work with individuals and families and groups, and provide that safety for them to explore what's needed in the moment of the session. So the third year is now the professional year, is how I would describe it. So much higher level thinking. We kind of get into psychodynamic interpersonal theory. There's a subject where we focus specifically on culturally responsive therapeutic practice, working with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander clients. Emotion focused therapy, another trauma subject around the body where we explore somatic approaches, which are very much integrated and evidence based in terms of how they work to, process and experience and integrate, traumatic experiences in one's life. And then at the end, you have a second placement subject, which is a double credit point. So it's two subjects. And then we have a wonderful placement team that supports students to source their own placements, or also support them along the journey with our own hosts that we have in line with their interests and all of that. So it's a very rich degree. And I'm going to get to do you want me to get to the electives first or after?
Yeah, no, let's talk about the electives, because there is a question that's come up,
Okay.
how are they bridging the gap between face-to-face and online learning? So I guess
Oh, wow. Okay.
opportunities to come to sort of
Okay.
campus for electives, is an
Sure.
amazing experience. So maybe if we can talk about,
Yeah, yeah.
that would be great. Yep.
Yeah, it's a great question. So the majority of our students actually study distance or online. They might be living regionally, and not every core subject is offered on campus. And the two campuses that we run on, but the face-to-face is Sydney or Melbourne. So for students that are living regionally, it is quite difficult unless they travel for that experience. And so coming to the electives, we have a lovely, rich, and very unique suite of electives at Ikon, and some are offered in the classic 11-week trimester mode, but a number of them are offered in what we call a residential intensive. Some of them are offered on campus at an intensive. So how that works, sorry, I should describe it as a blended intensive. So a number of the weeks leading up to the face-to-face component are online. So there'll be 6 weeks of learning online, so 3 hours every fortnight. And then students will come to campus, the closest one located to the cohort of that student. It could be Sydney or it could be Melbourne, for a long weekend of intensive deep dive into the experiential work. So it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. All of these things are published well in advance. So we have or they're also in a 5-day intensive mode. So it just depends on which subject it is and how they're offered. So for example, we have sandplay therapy, which is a beautiful modality. And that's offered in a 5-day intensive, either on campus or in a residential retreat near campus. We have dream work, which is offered on campus. We also have the Eastern practice, Western psychology, which involves meditative practices and processes and the intersection between East and West and and deepening your capacity to be with. And that's offered in I think it's a 3-day residential retreat. And we also offer psychotherapy, which is a beautiful, immersive, one of my favorites, offered in the Victorian Alpine region and facilitated by Dr. Jeff Berry, who's an psychotherapist. So drawing on First Nations wisdom and insight and input into that practice as a modality, like being outside, and what that can afford and the change that can facilitate. It's a wonderful collection of it's beautiful, and it's very unique because they're rich and broad, not focused in one way, but enables students to have the opportunity to kind of also try on things that feel like they'll fit. So there's 2 electives you take, one in second year and one in third year. So, and we publish, not every subject's offered every trimester, so we let students know in advance what's coming and where it'll be offered and the costs that it will involve. So we don't charge any extra in terms of tuition. There's just a small cost related to the accommodation, and that is always publicised well in advance. So, but definitely worth considering.
Yeah, and I think
Very
it gives students,
enriching.
the opportunity to
Yeah.
sort of meet each other, because,
Oh,
obviously
yeah.
it's very interactive online. They're still
Yeah.
got their breakout groups, etc. They're still
Mm.
meeting, each week online via
Mm.
Zoom, but also just
Mm.
having that opportunity to really
Yeah.
get a bit more of an intimate setting where you can really get to
Mm.
know each other. And some of these relationships,
Mm.
from the students I've
Mm.
met previously, they're lifelong
Mm.
relationships, because
Yeah.
they're sharing
Mm.
information about their lives, themselves, etc. So there's quite,
Mm.
deep bonds, which sort of students
That's
also
right.
build as well.
Yeah. And
Um,
I still attend a monthly peer group with everyone that, well, not everyone, but 10 people that I studied with. And it's wonderful support network as well as having professional supervision. Yeah, it's
yeah,
wonderful. Yeah, just
yeah,
wonderful.
it's a good supportive network.
And
And
you can refer clients to each other. It's great.
yeah, that's yeah. Depending what you specialize in. I guess before we jump into the postgraduate courses, at the end of
Yeah,
the bachelor degree, students can gain membership with the Australian Counselling Association. Our
yeah.
course is listed on the site, so they can be registered counsellors and psychotherapists, get their insurance, and go into practice. Is
Yeah,
that correct? Yep.
that is correct. Yeah,
Excellent.
so yeah, it's a wonderful. So yeah, and yeah, it's great. So we're accredited with them, and we're also exploring an additional accreditation pathway for students, so they'll have more choices in the future. And the
Mhm.
other thing I wanted to say about, which is going hand in hand with this pathway, is we're in the coming 12 months we'll be offering two or three other of our core subjects in an intensive mode. So there will be more opportunities for face-to-face engagement for our distant students because, yeah, it does enhance everything on all levels, being able to be in person. But
Yeah.
I do also want to say that studying online can really build your capacity to be with your clients and establish presence and think about telehealth. I have clients myself that live regionally, so it's a really important skill to develop and of great need at the moment, particularly with the need for counselling in regional and rural locations. So don't think I wouldn't want to think it's a less than experience. It's a different experience that we attempt to kind of model what it would be like to be in person, but also harnessing the opportunity within this space and how to adapt to suit these kinds of counselling contexts.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Sam. That's a very thorough explanation of how the course is set out. I'll just touch on, say, with delivery. So a full-time load is
Yeah.
3 by 3 hour classes each week. That's face-to-face online. But on top of that, for each of those subjects, you've got about 10 hours of self-directed learning.
Yeah.
So if you're hitting full time, just be prepared. It can be initially a little bit overwhelming.
Mm.
However, there's options to start with just one or two subjects if you just want to ease into it, because it's important that you really embody the material that you're learning. So if
Exactly.
you have any questions about,
Mm.
delivery options for you on your application form, there's an option for a choice of one subject or two or
Mm.
even three, and you're not locked in for the whole course. You can always
No.
change depending on your commitment.
Yeah.
I guess one other question we have is obviously some students just want to do the diploma,
Mhm.
and it's just whether or not they're eligible to enter the workforce after completing the diploma, or what opportunities are open to them.
So, in terms of exiting with the diploma,
Yeah.
you won't receive your Australian ACA registration, so you won't be
Yeah.
able to register as a counsellor and
Hmm.
acquire insurance that way. It's really important to do your due diligence in terms of what kind of work is available to you. I'll just give you some bigger context that's a bigger picture information that's really important for all of us to understand is that the national standards are the Australian government is just releasing the national standards or in the process of developing national standards for counsellors and psychotherapists. So, and this is intended to regulate our entire industry, not to diminish having a diploma or having a master's or having a bachelor. It's been designed to do, and you can Google it, and you'll see that they're available to download as a PDF. And what it's doing is setting standards of practice and competency practices at all different levels. So, diploma, bachelor, and masters. And the intention is to elevate our discipline area to provide us with more opportunities and to make us more competitive with psychologists and social workers who are eligible for Medicare, as most of you will probably know. So, doing this in the longer term is in service of our profession. It requires all higher education institutions, universities, and us in the private sector to look at our programs, ensure that we meet the standards of which we are currently doing, and we also do meet the standards. But we're also adapting, evolving our courses to make sure that they can comply in the longer term, which is also why we're looking at an additional accreditation pathway to ensure that we're doing this and we are offering safe and ethical and professional and accredited practices. So as a diploma exit, it's important to think about what your aspirations are and the kind of work that you would like to do. Often there's entry level work within an organizational context. For example, working in an alcohol and other drugs environment, working as a peer recovery support worker, working in case management. And also then those organisations often support their staff to go on and receive additional training. It might be specialised training, particularly working in alcohol and other drugs. It's just a really good example because there's a significant amount of work in that sector. It's a much needed sector. So that kind of work, and you may be able to do some counselling in a supported interface within those contexts. But I'm always cautious to give you a clear answer because it isn't clear. It's really important to have a look at Seek, and I would be signing up to job alerts as well because the industry is constantly evolving and looking at what's required to meet a certain requirement for a job description, for example. So I don't want to say that there won't be work. There's a lot of work in particular fields of practice, but things like private practice, I would be negligent to suggest that you could practice without professional membership because you need insurance. So I would encourage you to look at what's available, what's out there, what your aspirations are in the longer term, if it's not possible for you to go on right now for that. But this might be adding to another degree that you have and rounding that out. So yeah. Does that help?
Yeah, I think that's great. I think you're right there. Some people already have another degree and they're just wanting to add something extra on with that diploma.
That's right.
However, the beauty is even if you start with a diploma, you've already done the first year of that bachelor, you can always continue on for another 2 years. So you're doing the same first year as what those bachelor students are doing. And maybe,
that's right.
It's enough for you, or if not, you may want to continue on. We might jump into the master's program. This has been a hugely popular course since we've launched this.
It has. It has.
So,
it has.
Yeah, would you like to share a bit about that, Sam, please?
Sure. So the kind of the narrative that I share with you around the underlying philosophical kind of orientation of the bachelor degrees is what is happening with the Masters in Counselling and Psychotherapy at a more advanced practice level, with deepening into the neuroscience, into the somatic work, looking at different somatic modalities. And there's very specific practices that have a long history and legacy and evidence-based underpinning that work as a way to work with clients. And also the trauma-informed responsiveness. So those aspects of the degree are much deeper. All of the subjects are core. There are no elective subjects within the masters because the core subjects offer a deepening in particular focus areas. All of the lecturers that teach into the masters have expertise in the subject area that they are delivering, and some of the lecturer practitioners have also been involved in the writing of these subjects. So to break it up, it's a 2-year master's. So the first year, I broke it up into blocks of 4. So, which is the grade cert. So the first 4 subjects are the foundational subjects, very much like in the Bachelor of Counselling and Psychotherapy. Chris will talk a little bit about credit. So for some students, if you're coming in with the Bachelor of Counselling and Psychotherapy, you can apply for RPL or credit for those 4 subjects. We do an evaluation to just check for equivalence, but generally that is we offer a block credit for particular degrees. But with a Bachelor of Psychology or Psychological Science, these applications are reviewed and you may be eligible for some credit also, but it might be a different number or a different because of the difference in the nature of the practice, because we're not focused on psychological testing and assessment and diagnosis, so which we talked about before. Anyway, so the first 4 subjects are the foundational modality, is the foundational, theoretical constructs, the micro skills, working, across the lifespan, working in a culturally responsive way, the ethical dimensions of practice. And then in that second group of 4 subjects, it's a deepening. So looking at mental health, understanding mental health more broadly in different contexts, but also clinical contexts as well. There's 3 very specialized subjects in this suite of 4 subjects that you can exit with a graduate diploma. So it's always a bit of a mouthful doing this. One focused on emotion-focused psychotherapy, process experiential psychotherapy, and you can see all of these on the Ikon website, and you can read the subject descriptions. For some of you, you would have already had a taste of this, and if you completed a bachelor, and also if you're practicing, because you can complete some short courses that will give you access into some of these approaches. But they are deep, rich. And some of these subjects are actually offered in an intensive mode, which I'll get back to in a minute. So the last 8 subjects, which will enable you to graduate with a Master of Counselling and Psychotherapy. This is where we dive into the neuroscience, complex trauma. We explore assessment, treatment design in a much more nuanced and advanced practice level from the case formulation, case conceptualization kind of work that students do in the bachelor degree. A number of particular approaches that are quite unique to Ikon, the conversational model of psychotherapy, which is psychodynamic tradition. Another trauma subject around bridging mind, body, and healing, my personal favorite, which is the somatic work. So engage with areas like somatic psychotherapy, somatic experiencing, the foundational work of people like Janine Fisher, Pat Ogden, Babette Rothschild. Some of you out there may know this if you're thinking about the masters. The beautiful subject that's been written by 2 very well-known sensory motor psychotherapists in Canada, actually, who are dear friends of mine. So I have a lot of bias and I love this subject. Then we lead into working with complex presentations, which is essential at this level, and obviously the work you're required to be able to work in this way at an advanced level. We have a subject specifically dedicated to research, which is focused on a scoping review and really being able to draw on evidence and conduct research in a way that can support your case formulation. So, and it's a lot of group work in that, actually working in small teams on a particular thematic and preparing a scoping review. And the last subject is a placement subject to cap off the degree. So, I think, it's such a rich, varied, immersive, and I call it a thick description. It's a philosophical term, because it not only will offer you the capacity to really more deeply understand yourself in the context of your work, but also your clients and the kind of work that you progress on to do with this master's. So 3 of the subjects are offered in intensive. There's 1 subject every year. So these subjects are only offered in the intensive mode. So we offer this as a degree as a whole, we offer some of the subjects on campus in Sydney and Melbourne. All of the subjects we offer online, but 3 of them are offered in that blended intensive mode. And it's in that format where some of the weeks are online leading up to the 3-day intensive, which is currently we have them running both at Sydney and Melbourne campus at the same time. So and the Foundations of Therapeutic Practice is one of the intensives, and that's practicing the skills, the clinical skill application in dyads and triads. The second one is process experiential psychotherapy, which is more to do with emotion-focused psychotherapy, which is currently running in Sydney and Melbourne. And then the third one, which is running for the first time actually this trimester, which is the conversational model that's running in Sydney. So all students have the opportunity to connect, whether they're studying face-to-face online. So when you enroll, you'll know that that's part of the requirement to complete those subjects in that way. And then, you're with your ACA membership as well. Yes.
Thank you, Sam. That was extremely informative, very thorough. And
I'm very thorough, sorry.
No, that's
too
fantastic.
much information.
these are the questions that our students want to know. So they want to know
Yeah.
what the course is about. And sometimes as course advisors, we can't, share that
Yeah.
information as in depth as
Mm.
what you can. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah. I love
Um,
the story and the journey. It's really important to me as a psychotherapist, and I do a lot of narrative work. So maybe that's what's coming in. So it's
yeah,
probably coming in.
no, our
The
students love
story.
it. We're getting
Yeah.
some great feedback. So
Oh,
thank you for
good.
that.
I'm glad.
Luke, we might move on to the next slide. We've covered the different courses that we have on offer. We do have some domestic student scholarships, which you can
Yeah.
find on our website. So please refer to the website, or you can speak to one of our course
Mm.
advisors for
Mm.
what options are open for trimester one. Luke, next slide. Flexible delivery mode. We have spoken about
Mhm.
this. Sam covered a lot
Yeah.
of that information, but basically
Yeah.
there's options for online. Again, you're not
Mm.
locked in for the whole
No.
course if you choose online for that first trimester. There's daytime classes, there's evening classes.
Mm.
It's very flexible if you're working full time to be able
Mm.
to, log on in the evenings and do a class, or your lectures, etc. You've got an online learning platform. You can communicate with other students in the class. But there's something to suit everybody. And if people really want to do the course, then they manage to find a way to either attend the class on campus or online. So it's a
Mm.
very interactive learning environment, as we've spoken about. We're not just sitting back listening to a lecture. There's breakout groups, there's conversation, there's activities, etc. So you'll be engaged throughout that class. I'm just aware of time, so we might go to the
Mm.
next slide, please, Luke. What makes Ikon special? So we did touch on
Mm.
this, Sam. I guess
Mm.
it's just what sets Ikon apart, really. Why should people come and study with us?
For so many reasons. So
Exactly.
I'm very passionate about the work that we do here. My colleagues are my mentors, my support. I've learned so much from them and also from my students. One of what I love about being a psychotherapist and also being an educator is that the work is collaborative, relational, and transformative. How can you not be transformed in your relationship with others in a way that has helped me with greater insight into my own patterns and my own kind of personal landscape. And what I love about Icon is that the development of self is core in the context of the work that we do. So without an understanding of who we are and the human potential and the qualities we all have to heal and connect and relate, we cannot be of service to others in our lives, no matter what work we do. So, like I said at the very beginning, while we cover the modalities and particular practices and techniques, this idea of integration and working with the in a holistic, humanistic way with the whole person centers us in the work. So we grow through it. And with that, then that kind of informs our relationships with others. So that's what I love because it's non pathologizing, it is strength based, person centered, you know, we're driven by empathy, the fundamental principles of warm positive regard and curiosity, and inquisitiveness, holding things that might be different and look and being with that, right, which is what
Yeah.
I love. So it's very balanced, holistic, diverse, and inclusive because you'll be working with clients from all different walks of life, different faiths, different backgrounds, and having a curious and inquisitive mindset is what we foster here. And that's what comes through whether we're teaching online or face to face is that capacity to let's talk, let's share, let's be with this in a really safe and contained and supportive way that is nourishing, not distancing, if that makes sense. So that's
Yeah.
what makes Icon special. So yeah, is that component of what we all bring, and we bring that as a collective. So, and we have lecturers that have been teaching here for a very long time, and that believe very deeply in the Ikon approach, which is the transformative one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I think
yeah,
also besides the support of lecturers, there's a student experience team for students who
yay,
may be,
yeah.
struggling. If you're just coming back into academic
Mm,
study and you think, I haven't written an assignment for 15 years, where do I
mm,
start? There's workshops available. You can
mm,
reach out to, as I said, the student experience team. There's student support there for you. Um,
mm,
the class sizes are small. You're not sitting in some big lecture hall with hundreds of other students. It's a very
mm,
nice,
yeah.
intimate setting. So there's plenty of time
Mm,
for personalised attention. And we do take your learning very seriously. And we want to see you succeed in this course. So
very well
it's
said.
certainly a benefit having all these
Mm,
support networks around you.
mm,
Luke, do you want to move to the next slide, please? Support, yeah, we've just covered this student experience team, facilities, resources, online resources, and course advisors for course information. You'll be reaching out hopefully to speak with us tomorrow if you have any questions about the course.
mm,
We do have our trimester 1 starting, which will
mm,
begin the first week of February. And
mm,
with that, our applications are closing on the 16th. So if you're looking at moving forward with this course, even if it's just starting with one subject this trimester to dip your toe in, just to ease
mm,
into it, it's a great time to get started.
mm,
You can either email us or contact us. We can help you through the application process.
mm,
And if you want to discuss things like applying for credit, we can also cover those questions. But there's quite a comprehensive breakdown of block credit
mm,
options on our website, which you can find if you've completed something like a diploma in counselling or diploma in
mm.
community services, then you may be eligible for a block credit. So, okay, next slide, please, Luke. Okay, we're going to hear a video from one of our current students, Diego Luna. He was actually our 2025 New South Wales International Student of the Year. He's been studying with Ikon for a while now. He started out with his diploma in counselling with our sister company ALG, but he's currently studying the Bachelor of Counselling and Psychotherapy, and he's truly inspirational. So we're just going to play you a short video.
What inspired me to join the bachelor's degree counseling and psychotherapy at Icon was definitely that when I finished the counseling diploma, I was like, man, there's so much more that we can explore. There's so much more knowledge out there, and I just wanted to deepen my knowledge into it, expand my expertise. I really saw the impact on the power of this field and how counseling and psychotherapy can be transformational for many. So I was like, oh, I think Icon is providing information, the right lecturers, the right theory, and I was just keen for it, and I'm very, very happy that I'm doing it.
Yes. What an amazing student. He's really put his heart and soul into the course, and he's a living example of somebody who has truly transformed from the start of that course to, where we're seeing him now. And he's out in the community, I believe, doing some amazing work with people. So yes, he's a great example. Luke, next slide, please.
What inspired
Oh. Okay, we're going to come into some questions. Sam, if you don't mind, you're happy to answer a few of our online questions? Yeah, okay,
Yeah,
fantastic.
I'll do
Um,
my best.
okay, so let me just see what we've got here. Um, so I guess we've covered some job opportunities after the bachelor degree, but after the master's, what sort of opportunities are open to students?
Wow, so a more experienced clinician level of appointment. I mean, so depending on where you enter the degree, say if you've come in with a bachelor and some years of practice experience, you may already have an aspiration in mind through the course of doing the master degree. So private practice is definitely that. Sometimes it's more about professional development and then being able to apply for a senior position within an organizational context. Um, depending where that is. So higher level, more overseeing other practitioner roles. So at this level, students often come in with professional membership. Well, generally they'll come in with professional membership and potentially years of practice experience. So it's I would say there's a more advanced level of entry into the field. I would say that most students will be working in a related field. They might shift from, say, community services, for example, or shift from working in an EAP counselling setup to wanting to do more rich, deep psychotherapeutic work, as an example. So I can't tell you, it's very varied. So I think about all the students that I know, and where they're and what they're doing, and often some students go on to teach actually in the longer term too. So a master's is a wonderful way to also lead into lecturing in the longer term. So it's something to think about as well, because as I mentioned, all of our lecturers are practitioners. So yeah, it's very varied. Yeah.
All right. And I guess with the placements, we do have some host organisations, but obviously we want students to find something that's meaningful to them.
That's
But
right.
typically, for example, with the placement, just as an example, the 120-hour placement, that might span out like 1 day per week over 12 weeks. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. It generally works out to be that 1 day per week. And some of those will be hours on site at the organisation, and there'll be a certain component of those hours which will be called indirect client hours, which might be doing case notes, designing a group workshop facilitation, potentially, sitting in interdisciplinary team meetings, doing intakes, all kinds of things. So it's rich and varied to give you a insight into all facets of practice.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think I mentioned earlier, that's one of the things the students have always commented on. They feel like once they finish the course, that they're ready to step into that role. It's not like they're coming from a course which has all been done online with no opportunity for placement.
So in the placement subjects, there's small group supervision. So we have an academic placement coordinator at Ikon. So she oversees all of the placements across all of the degrees, actually, including the arts therapy degree. So when you're on placement, you'll be in a small supervision group, which is up to 6 students, and you'll have a dedicated, allocated placement lecturer who's also accredited supervisor. So you're getting support through every week, outside of your placement to navigate complexity, to present any issues that you're facing or challenges in the context of the work, case presentations, things like that. You also have a workplace supervisor that supports you within the placement. So yeah, it's really very well supported by our placement team and also by our academic placement coordinator to ensure that it's safe, ethical, you're supported, obviously your clients and the workplace is supported as well. So yeah, it's great. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Dan. We're just running near to time now, so we are going to wrap things up. As I mentioned earlier, if you have any questions, any additional questions, Tequila's done an amazing job at answering most of your questions this evening, and so has Sam, so thank you for that. Hopefully we've given you a deep insight into what Ikon has to offer. We'd love you to reach out if you have any further questions. We would love to have you on board for our first intake for this year, and feel free to give us a call and we can take you through the application process or questions, as we mentioned, about credit, delivery options, etc. So I'd just really like to thank everyone for taking the time to attend this evening. We really appreciate it. I'd like to thank Dr. Samantha Edwards-Vandenhoek for assisting with our webinar, and Tequila in the answering our questions, and Luke for being the amazing slide master. So
and thank you, Chris,
yes,
for emceeing and hosting. Thank you, Chris.
No problem. Okay, everyone. So we are going to be logging off soon. As I mentioned, this will be recorded, so you'll be getting a email tomorrow, and we hope to hear from you. So have a lovely evening. Thank you. Thanks, Sam.
See you,
Good
everyone.
night.
Bye. You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.